Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, we're taking a look back at some of our favorite animal stories. From the inspiring to the engaging.
Hi, baby.
These stories have left an imprint on our hearts. We are sharing some of our most memorable moments on the people we've met and the animals they care for. Straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. It's a park like no other here in Florida, the Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park, where visitors can see native Florida animals up close in a natural outdoor setting. A spring is a natural opening in the ground that allows water to flow up from the aquifer below. At Homosassa Springs, the water is crystal clear and the temperature is consistent. 72 degrees year-round. And it's the water that attracts visitors and animals. This area of Homosassa Springs has been a tourist attraction since the early 1900s. Now the water here, Susan, crystal clear, as clean and brilliant.
Yes.
This is part of the springs, is it not?
It certainly is. It's just the flow of the water. It keeps it nice and fresh and clear. The springs attracts all kinds of fish, manatees. The water is warm coming out of the spring and clean, and they come in to enjoy that, especially during the cold weather. We'll get like 100 or so manatees in here on a cold morning. Birds come in. It's like a centerpiece of
So
the
the
place.
springs were here first,
They were.
and then came the animals.
And even back when the Native Americans were here, they lived around the spring. And they fished, and it supplied what they needed. And later, as the settlers moved in, they also appreciated the spring, and they had a walkway. They could get off the train and walk down and see the spring and marvel at it. So
What a marvelous place.
it is. It is. Everybody should come.
Now, this park dates back to how far?
The earliest attraction that was here was in the 1940s. And it was smaller, and then several different private owners had it.
And we should say that Ivan Tours was an animal trainer,
Yes.
and he worked between LA, Hollywood, and Florida.
Yes.
And he actually homed the animals here. They were snowbirds, weren't
That's
they?
right. And he had an arrangement with Bruce Norris, who owned the attraction then, to house the animals here during the winter months or when they weren't being used in the movies or on TV and so forth. Eventually, the state of Florida purchased the land, and it became Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park. We're the only one that has captive wildlife here. It's all native Florida wildlife, and it's not, none of the animals that you see here could survive in the wild. So we're sort of considered an assisted living facility for wildlife.
You're a sanctuary.
Yes, a sanctuary. I love that word. And they serve as ambassadors for their species. We try to give them the most natural conditions, habitats, food. We do animal enrichment with them to encourage their native natural behaviors and so forth, and to give them something to look forward to. Most of the animal exhibits are situated along the springs, giving these residents an environment that closely mimics what they would have in the wild.
Oh, look
at that. She's just showing off for you. Yeah. It's the Florida manatees that is one of the biggest attractions here. These girls live around the main spring year-round. And with the underwater viewing area, visitors can see these big ladies up close without getting wet. So Susan, we've got a pal here that's looking at us and peeking at us and just about as curious as we are with him. Is this a girl? Is this a boy? And how much does this creature weigh? These are all girls that live here with us that are resident manatees, because they don't want to encourage breeding of manatees in facilities.
This one, and I can't see her mark, but it's one of our larger manatees, and probably 2,000 to 3,000 pounds.
We are truly in a fishbowl.
We are.
But you know, the manatees are just so fascinating, and they're mystical, and we love them. They look like such lovable creatures. Yeah. Why are we so enthralled with manatees?
They're such gentle creatures, and they're vegetarians, and so they're not at all aggressive in any way. They're just wonderful animals, and easy to watch, and they're curious. You can't dive here at our park, but if you're out with a dive shop in the river, they're so curious, they'll come right up to you.
But they are protected.
They are
and when we do swim with the manatees, it's a don't touch.
Do not touch them.
Be very quiet.
Yes.
Don't upset them. But we still want to hug them. We want to get right up and squeeze them.
You'll have to buy one of our stuffed manatees.
Oh, okay. That's how we can accomplish it.
But they're very gentle animals.
When the weather turns cold in Florida and the water temperature drops, these endangered mammals head to the springs throughout the state. During that time of year, this viewing area at Homosassa Springs will have hundreds of manatees who are in search of warmer water.
These are such gentle giants. We have come to love them and know them here in Florida, and a lot of people are learning about them. How do they fit into our ecosystem? And again, why is it so important that we protect these manatees?
I think it's extremely important because everything has a role in the ecosystem. Everything has, and everything, other species rely upon the other species. So you can't take one thing out of it and not care about it. Even a mosquito has a role in the ecosystem, you know, so.
Are we winning the battle with keeping them safe?
We certainly are trying, and I hope so.
As the water continues to flow, you can't help but think how the springs connects us all, and why preserving it is a necessity.
From the serene natural setting of the park, we head to something a little more wild. This next adventure offers the chance to be surrounded by rhinos, giraffes, and even wildebeest, all from the comfort of your car. Let's take a look. When you enter Lion Country Safari, it's as if you are actually the one on display, driving into 300 acres of animal habitat. Looking out your car window, you can't help but see something amazing. The first animal to greet us was this 94-year-old tortoise named Lance.
It's estimated that they can live up to 200 years.
So he's middle-aged.
Yeah, he's got a lot of years left in him.
Yes, he does. Lion Country Safari opened more than 50 years ago and was the first cageless zoo in the country. To this day, the park prides itself as being a leader in conservation, giving the more than 1,000 animals here a natural open environment, allowing the animals to act as if they were in the wild.
All right, this is probably good right here.
Wildlife Director Brian Dowling had us hop into the back of a truck to watch the feeding of some of the white rhinos.
They'll be here in a moment.
Oh, they're coming.
They're gonna, when they come over here, they're gonna eat the alfalfa up first, and then we'll throw out a little bit of grain. You'll probably see a little bit of aggression amongst the zebras. Zebras are they're pretty rough and tough animals. That's kind of how they sort out their politics in the group is through aggression. And the rhinos are really a terrific animal to work with. They're very intelligent. They're very social creatures. They're very tactile also. So you always see them like when they're laying down touching each other, rubbing up against each other. They're really an amazing animal. They are one of my favorite animals to work with.
And
here.
so prehistoric.
Really the success of the rhino program that we have is really that relationship that the keepers have with the rhinos.
What do you think, Shannon? Hi, baby.
What's up?
Hi. I'm thinking, my goodness, are they huge?
They're right around 4,000 pounds.
Yeah.
They're poached for the horn. You know, some cultures think that has some magical medicinal value, which it's really just keratin. It's just like compressed hair. To be perfectly honest with you, it's kind of gross. So here's the horn, so you can feel how bristly that is right there.
Hi. Yeah. The safari's open space, the mild Florida temperatures, and the care and dedication from keepers are some of the reasons Dowling believes the conservation programs are successful. More than 30 white rhinos have been born here.
Because we display our animals in these large social groups, and you know, a large crash of rhino or a large herd of zebra or black buck, and that brings out a lot of their natural behaviors that you wouldn't typically see unless you were observing them in the wild.
I actually, and it's hard to talk about this without getting emotional, but one time I saw a kid say they saw a giraffe. They started sobbing. She said, "Mommy, I thought giraffe weren't real." So I think it is incredibly important to get out, to see that these animals are alive, and that's the way that you can connect to them in a really real sense and care about them in the wild, and care about the planet, and care about what you can do as an individual person to take better care of the planet and make sure that these guys have homes.
Stick around. There's more of my favorite moments after the break.
I need a vacation. Life is exhausting. I want to relax and enjoy some me time. Then Dante's Den is the perfect place for your vacay stay. Spacious air-conditioned dens, plenty of room to exercise and run, and a pool to swim in. Whether it be an overnight stay, short or long-term, Dante's Den is waiting for you. For more information, visit dantesden.org. Ah, my land shark in the water!
You've probably seen a deer before. They're found in just about every state. But what about the smallest species of deer found right here in the United States? We traveled to the Florida Keys to hear about how the key deer are beating the odds. The white-tailed deer is the most common deer you will find here in the United States, and you could say this is its distant cousin, the key deer. One way to tell the white-tailed apart from the key deer? Their size. Key deer are no bigger than a medium-sized dog, and these deers are only found here in the lower Keys of Florida.
We entered a period where the world started getting a little warmer, the glaciers melted, and sea levels began to rise. As that happened, essentially key deer and the other wildlife that had been residents of all bigger, larger South Florida became trapped down here, and the longer they stayed, the more they were separated from their mainland cousins. And so some species are actually separate subspecies. Now they look distinctly different, like the key deer. They've been separate from their cousins on the mainland for thousands of years. So it was really the rising and fall of different sea levels that allowed animals, including the key deer, to migrate into unexplored territory, and then those that stayed behind and are left in this, what's left is this little skinny chain of islands down here, have been so separate from their cousins on the mainland that they do look different. Our raccoons look different down here. So we have different looking marsh rabbits, a subspecies of marsh rabbits down here. So it's really kind of interesting that geology and the history of the earth kind of shaped what kind of wildlife we have down here.
Early settlers caused the key deer population to drop to near extinction until the National Key Deer Refuge was set up.
It was established in 1957 basically to protect the key deer and other species that lived here. Folks were seeing that there was this, the chance that key deer were virtually going to go extinct. There was extensive hunting, poaching, and there was only 25 to 50 deer left. And some folks got together, some Boy Scouts, some wildlife organizations. It was really the work of a lot of organized citizens that got together and persuaded politicians to put aside the National Key Deer Refuge. So now it's one of 560 plus federal national wildlife refuges. We've come a long way since then, and key deer they're really one of the success stories of the Endangered Species Act. Interesting refuge here in that the whole community is wrapped up within the boundaries of the National Key Deer Refuge, which is different from a lot of national wildlife refuges where you'll go through a gate and you've entered the National Wildlife Refuge. Here, the community is wrapped up within the whole key deer refuge, and so people interact with key deer on a daily basis. We have some precautions in place that are meant to protect the key deer and help keep them wild. So one of the main things that we ask is that visitors and residents don't feed the key deer. And that's really important to us. It helps keep them wild. Once key deer start to associate people with food, then they start getting into trouble, and there's a number of different ways that can happen. If they're fed from cars along roadsides, they start to hang out along roadsides, and probably automobile accidents are the biggest cause of mortality to key deer every year. If they start to associate people with food, they hang out in neighborhoods more often. They get attacked by dogs. They may get entangled in people's trash. And their willingness to kind of tolerate people also makes them targets for poaching sometimes. Really highly encourage people to just let wildlife be wild, especially with the key deer, and resist that temptation to feed them, because they will push the limits and come up to you and approach for food. So at that point, just take photographs, be appreciative of the fact that we have these marvelous creatures here, but please don't feed them.
Stay with us. There's more Animal Outtakes after the break. Welcome back. Eagles are a type of bird that gives off a sort of a noble demeanor. They are a symbol of power and strength. And as you're about to see, our next guest proves just that.
Louis, it is rare that we can get up close to an eagle. And this is an eagle.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. But this is not an American eagle that we're used to seeing.
No, it's not. This is a tawny eagle, and they're native to Africa.
I would imagine the tawny is because of her coloring.
Exactly. It's a beautiful coloring.
She certainly does. And very, very regal, but a little spicy here with us, huh?
Yeah. Eagles do have an attitude. They're very high-strung birds. And she knows that she's dominant. She knows she's top of the food chain, and she will remind you of it.
The eyes. We have seen some gorgeous eyes on the owls that you have brought to us. These are very human-like.
Yes, and they're very powerful. They could see from very, very far away. Their main sense is their eyes, and they could see very, very far and home in on whatever prey they're trying to find.
Is this bird protected?
It's not a protected species. It's not native. It's not an endangered species. There is abundance of them in Africa.
There are, but they're rather rare here, wouldn't you say?
Yes, we're very far from Africa, so you don't find them a lot over here unless they're in captivity.
Sure. Now, what does she usually have as her diet?
Well, her diet varies. She will eat rats, she'll eat quail, she'll eat rabbits. Depending on her weight, she has a very diverse diet. Now, in the wild, it's a little different. In the wild, they do hunt small mammals, and also they have a very cool trick to eat sometimes. When there's a carcass in the wild, and vultures are picking at the carcass, these little guys here will fly right behind the vulture, very quietly and slowly, and bark at them. And when they scare the vulture will throw up all his food because it's too heavy to fly, and then she gets a free meal and she had to work for.
Well, I would say that's very ingenious.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What is the life expectancy in captivity?
In captivity, they've been roughly around 40 to 50 years. They could live for a very long time if properly taken care of.
You know, we talk about in captivity versus in the wild, and a lot of our audience doesn't always understand. Why do we keep some of these birds in captivity? Why do we nurture them? Why do we protect them?
In my personal opinion is, not everybody's going to be able to go travel to see one of these animals. They do bring a lot of positive in educating us how different animals work. Some people think they see one animal and they're like, that's the way the whole species of the whole animal is. And they're all varied, just like us humans from different parts of the world, different animals from different parts of the world. They do vary, and it brings more education in your face. Some people could learn about things reading, and other people have to see it physically to be able to understand how it works. And I think if properly taken care of, an animal in captivity is not a bad thing. With some of the animals, it's the best conservation. Sometimes we cannot have them in the wild, but we've been known to bring animals in captivities, get their populations healthy enough to return them back to the wild. And it helps a lot with the problems that we have in the world for extinct species.
Coming up after the break, this little one will serenade us. The sound this next critter makes is iconic in jungle scenes and movies. Now, some may think it's a monkey making the high-pitched call, but we're going to introduce you to a character who proves size doesn't matter when it comes to pitch. Louis, I have this adorable creature here, and I'm just, again, falling in love. Who have I got here?
This is Stevie. Stevie is a laughing kookaburra.
Stevie.
And they're native to Australia. They're one of the largest kingfisher birds in the world. Now, he's still just a little baby. He's only about 4.5 months old, so he still has a lot to grow. He is full size, but he's still maturing with his feathers. So that's why he looks all puffy right now.
He is absolutely very, very handsome.
Thank you.
And he talks to you, and he sings, doesn't he?
He does sing. He's the only one that laughs at my jokes. It's this little guy here.
And can we hear him sing?
We're going to try. Stevie, you ready? Oop, the wind got him.
Okay.
Ready, Stevie?
Oh, I think there was a little Puccini in there right at the end. Yes, absolutely. This is a sound that's very reminiscent of the old Hollywood movies to me.
Yes, yes. Most jungle movies that we see the camera going through the jungle, but we never see monkeys jumping around, but we do hear the noise. The noise comes from these little guys when they're doing their laughter, which is what we just finished hearing.
Now, this bird is a bird of prey?
He is a carnivore. He does eat other insects and lizards in the wild. He perches himself in some trees and wait for most of the prey to come to them. They'll catch different lizards, insects, even snakes, and sometimes they get animals that are a little bigger than them and they're able to eat them.
They are, huh? So they're very opportunistic.
Oh, yes, they are. They don't miss a meal.
This carnivore uses its keen eyesight to look for prey. When it sees a snake or an insect, it will smack it on the ground or drop it from high up in the air to immobilize it. Then the kookaburra swallows its food whole.
He is just absolutely so gorgeous here, but this beautiful body is really a good camouflage for him, is it not?
Yes, it is. They live in the forest type areas in Australia, and the males and the females look very similar. The males usually have the more blue feathers on the sides, and the females are usually a little bigger, but they're very similar and they blend in very well with their environment.
And you know, he is just so comfortable. You've raised him, haven't you?
I've raised this little guy since he was just a few weeks old. He came to us. People that had him before thought it was a good idea to have a kookaburra as a pet, until he does a little sound that he does first thing in the morning. And it does not become fun. He'll do it 2 or 3 times first thing in the morning and at night, but they could do it randomly throughout the day. And you cannot shut them down. You cannot tell them stop it like you can do with a little dog start barking. So unfortunately, they become a bit of a headache because it's too loud, and then they don't want them. And that happens to a lot of birds like this, even with parrots. When they start making a lot of noise, they're like, this is not fun no more. It's not as cute as it is, and that's how I was able to acquire this little guy.
He must be very safe and confident with you, Luis, because he is not grabbing on at all to my hand. He's just kind of resting there. He's just very peaceful. He's taking in the beautiful weather, yes, and he's talking to us, yes. Can you sing a little more?
Can you sing? Stevie. That's it. It's a little one this time.
That was a little one. Well, I'll tell you, it's music to our ears. And what a wonderful adventure this is, to be so close to this beautiful, beautiful bird. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. And we'll be back here again next week with some new animals and even more encounters. Until then, thanks for watching. The kookaburra. Here we go.